Welcome, 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 welcome. Hi, everybody. Dave Stevens here, and it's another episode of the Geary, Stein, and Stevens Show. I'm coming to you from the home offices here, my home office at least, right here in Bristol, Connecticut. And again, another great show. We've got a great guest, and I'm just happy to be here as we prep, getting ready to go to the Super Bowl. I'm heading to Las Vegas this week to do comedy, my very first comedy gig before a paid audience. So I call it sit down since you know my butt's on the ground, but really excited about what we have going on today. So let me, of course, bring in my co-host with the most, Troy Geary, up in Duluth, Minnesota. Any warmer today, brother? Is it getting any better up there with those temperatures?
It's not too bad. I'm just getting over a cold, Dave. So other than that, I'm doing great.
Well, it's great to have you. And of course, today we've got a great guest that can cover all of the gamuts of football, from college to the NFL, to covering the NFL, to covering college. And of course, I'm talking about today's guest, who is no stranger to playing in the NFL. And in fact, I did my homework so hard that I was able to find his lone touchdown back in the day when he caught this touchdown from Mark Sanchez when he was playing for the Jets. And of course, Sanchez known for the butt fumble, but he's also known for throwing the lone touchdown to our guest today, Ben Hartsock. And Ben joining us from Atlanta. Ben, it's great to have you here on the show. We'll look at that video a little bit later, but thanks for joining us today on Geary, Stein, and Stevens, my friend.
Yeah, you did have to do some serious investigative work, forensic analysis to find that. It's so funny. I'd only been on that team for like nine or 10 days before I scored that touchdown. And so the funny part about it is my teammates were excited that we scored a touchdown, but I am fully convinced that half of them that were celebrating with me in the end zone, like, I don't even know this guy's name.
Yeah.
So that's the reality of the NFL, is that, there's so many guys in and out of your locker room throughout the course of a season. I was signed. That was, I don't know, second, third week in the regular season, and I'd only been there right before I got cut from the end of the Falcons. And so, yeah, that's funny memories there. My as I got to know those teammates, we joke about that moment.
And Ben, of course, you had a lot. I mean, any career in the NFL is a good one. And you talked about being a journeyman, and I wonder, what was that mindset like for you coming off the success at Ohio State? Everybody that comes from there, they think they're automatically, going to be this superstar in the NFL. And you really, you worked hard. And again, that shows your perseverance. But, the successes came harder for you than those guys that are like those, blue chip prospects.
Yeah, the transition to the NFL, you hear it a lot in the quarterback position, but the struggle is mental. If you're good enough to get drafted, if you're good enough to go to a camp with an NFL team, you can run fast enough, you're strong enough, you've got the skills, or else they wouldn't let you in the building. The difference is the level of competition is so high and the margin for error is so small. So you have to be able to not just make the catch or make the tackle or any of those things. You have to be able to do it on Monday Night Football, on Sunday Night Football, in the AFC Championship. These huge moments, and that's one of the biggest differentiators that I saw. And I always said this about my own career: I was good enough to stick around. I was never good enough to stick around with one team. And so everybody wants that long career with one spot, Pro Bowls and starting, and that wasn't in God's plan for my life. And now, after the fact, I look at the opportunity to have been in 5 different locker rooms, to have played in 5 different cities with 5 different fan bases that are each more different than the previous. The Colts fan base couldn't have been more different than that Jets fan base, and they were both passionate, but it was just different. So thankful for it now in retrospect, but as a player, living that journeyman lifestyle is one that it's never comfortable. It's never, you just never feel at ease. I remember as a rookie, just a nervous rookie player, I was asking Marcus Pollard, who was a 10-year veteran at the time, and I said, "Gosh, Marcus, like, when did you finally realize I made it? Like, I'm an NFL guy." And he was an entrenched starter, and he looked at me, he goes, "Ben, you got to understand, you're here to replace me." And he was right. After that season, he was a great teammate and showed me the ropes about being a pro as a rookie. And sure enough, immediately after that season, his contract was let go, and off he went. And that's the cold, hard reality of NFL life. I always say this, it's not all swimming pools and movie stars for most of us.
While at Ohio State, you were a three-time all academic Big Ten honoree with a degree in biology. If you didn't have a career in NFL, what was your career aspirations into that field?
Yeah, I was a biology major, and I was actually looking to go into sports medicine, maybe physical therapy, something to do around the game. In high school, I had some ankle injuries that I was dealing with, and so you get around that, and you realize, okay, here's an opportunity to help. I was a player that was desperate to get back on the field, and I had doctors and physical therapists and trainers that helped me get back on the field. So I was trending that direction. Whether it would have been orthopedic surgery or athletic training or physical therapy was kind of, I wasn't quite certain exactly what role that I was going to take there. But I can tell you now that looking back on it, I'm a slow decision maker. I'm kind of a guy that analyzes things to the nth degree. And a lot of times in medicine and surgery and situations like that, athletic training, it's, hey, can this guy play? Can he not? Hey, does he need surgery? Does he not? I think it was in a divine thing that I was not ending up in that field, because it would have been something. I would have been friendly and nice, had a good bedside manner, but I don't know that I was cut out to make those kinds of decisions.
Well, Ben, I want to know is when you first came into the league and you were drafted and you thought, hey, I'm going to be with the Colts for a long, long time and this is going to be great. And this young Peyton Manning guy is, uh, all going to be the wave of the future. I mean, what was that mindset going into that first camp?
Well, even coming from Ohio State, and I was a third round draft pick, and so I had every pedigree that you could have coming out of college. Multi-year starter at Ohio State, won a national championship, all conference at the, all Big Ten. But when you walk into an NFL locker room, you realize that's all meaningless, and you're starting over from scratch. And I remember vividly being at the in the cafeteria with a bunch of other rookies right after we got drafted, getting ready for a mini camp, and Peyton Manning walks in, and we all were starstruck. You're like, oh my gosh, there he is. And we all have to snap ourselves out of it and kind of elbow each other like, no, man, like, that's our teammate. He's a celebrity, but he's our teammate. He's our peer now. And there's that moment of like clarity where you've got to snap out of that. But the reality is, I struggled. Every player's cut a little different. Some people their confidence is their downfall. I was the exact opposite. I was always wondering, do I really have what it takes to play here? And he was a great teammate. That team was a great team. Tony Dungy, Hall of Fame coach, Bill Polian, a Hall of Fame general manager. They built quality teams, and it was a great team to learn from, to be around pros. Jeff Saturday, who was the interim coach of the Colts, was a great mentor to me while I was there. I mentioned Marcus Pollard and Peyton Manning. There were lots of good men on that team that taught us young players how to play in the NFL, because even though I had a good pedigree coming from Ohio State, you still wonder and need to be shown what the ropes are like at this pro level, what the expectations are. And as much as I enjoyed the teammates, I did struggle as a player. That's what started my journeyman life, is I didn't get off to a good start there. It wasn't anything that the team did. It was on me. It was that mental strain of being able to keep up, and some of the expectations of their techniques I struggled with. But ultimately, that's a train that's moving fast, that as a rookie that's introduced into that team, or a free agent, or a guy off the street that comes into that locker room, you need to get up to speed quickly and jump on this thing. They're not slowing down for you, because that was a team that was a playoff contender, a Super Bowl contender each and every year. That was right in the early part of Manning's era, where he was established as one of the best players in the NFL. I struggled to get up to speed on that, and that's why I only played there for 2.5 seasons.
Now, before Troy jumps in, what the heck does Omaha mean? Like, you were around that. Like, is it like,
Yeah.
what's the basis of that? Did he like steaks? Like what? And now everybody mocks him and all these kind of things, as he's become almost like Shaq as a character, but he was a pretty decent player back in the day.
A great player, a spectacular teammate. He was a guy that the moment Peyton Manning walks in the room, everybody knows, oh, there's that guy's calling the shots. He's got that kind of aura. He's got that kind of, power. But he was a great teammate. He always brought guys in, and if you had questions, was willing to show you the ropes. Omaha is simply hurry up. It's time to go. Omaha is snap it on the next set hut. because that offense, the funny thing about his legacy and watching Peyton Manning highlights, everybody looks at that offense and say, oh my gosh, it must have been as thick as a phone book, complicated. It really wasn't a complicated offense. It was just that it was all executed at the line of scrimmage where we all got to watch him go through the process. And so Omaha was simply, hey, hurry it up and snap the ball. We're running out of time. But there was a very well thought out language that we all learned about, and Omaha was one that everybody kind of keyed in on, but it was built upon itself year over year over year. We only had 4 or 5 run plays. We only had 8 to 50 or 10 to 15 pass plays that we would run, whereas you look at some of these other offenses, they'd have hundreds and hundreds of schemes that they would try to dial up based on their opponent. Manning could line up in a basic 2-by-2 set with one running back behind him, and he could, through his study analysis and his magic, be able to identify the perfect play for that defense that we're facing. But it was all done at the line of scrimmage. And so he had this elaborate language that communicated to us, hey, here's the pass protection. If we don't like the pass protection, we can audible to a run play. If we don't like this run play, we can audible to the run play the opposite direction. And it all happened at the line of scrimmage. But Omaha was when things were finally running out of time. Hey, hurry. We got to snap the ball, said Hutt. And Omaha was what he said to let us know that. The funny thing is there were times where everybody would wise up. The defense would wise up, say Omaha means get off. They're going to snap the ball so the defensive line could get a jump. But he would have code words before Omaha that would say, hey, I'm a fake Omaha, so we can draw them off sides. Like, it really was a game of chess to watch how Manning would build this language and find ways to exploit it against a defense that was constantly trying to slow him down.
Well, speaking of chess match, it's our move as we have to go into break. We'll continue talking to Ben about the NFL. Come back and talk about that amazing college career, too, as well. I know it was way back before HD and all that stuff, but we've got some clips and highlights. And, of course, I look good in my shirt today, Troy. Do you think? How do you like this shirt? This is one of my favorite colors that everybody says it pops my eyes. And, of course, we have to thank our sponsors, which, of course, would be Fresh Clean Threads. And if you like Fresh Clean Threads and you don't want to wear shirts that cost a lot of money but look good, well, go to their website, freshcleanthreads.com. You type in the show code GSS Show. You get 20% off. They've got shirts, Henley's, college shirts, and of course they're sponsoring us at the Super Bowl, so I'm really excited to be wearing their stuff. Troy and I are going to be there on Radio Row looking good in our fresh, clean threads, so please go to the website, support our show, and you look good too. In fact, you look just as good as our guest today, and bringing Ben back in. And thank you, Ben, for joining us. And Troy's kicking off our second segment, of course, with throwing back old school. Troy?
Yeah, I want to talk to you about the 2002 National Championship, 20th year anniversary, actually, this year. Against Miami, 31-24, double overtime game. As my memory serves me right, you guys were like a double-digit underdog.
Yeah.
What was the mentality going into that game against Miami? I think they won like 34 straight prior to that. And I want to talk about your key block with Maurice Corlerat for helping you guys win that national championship. I think we have a clip of that too.
Yeah, well, that game, there were some similarities to our championship 20 years ago. Hard to believe it was that long, where we were big-time underdogs, just like TCU was big-time underdogs to Georgia. Now people have called me out by making that comparison because Ohio State and TCU certainly aren't, those things aren't necessarily the same. But we went into that game just like Georgia had a dominant the year before. Miami was dominant the year prior, won the championship in 2001, undefeated season.
And that was a throw to you. You almost came up with that big one in overtime.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. There were a couple times that I was sitting in that end zone in Phoenix for that national championship game, thinking I'm going to catch a touchdown in the Natty, but it didn't work out that circumstance, and it worked out that it was double overtime, one of the most thrilling games in college football history, certainly among Ohio State fans. And I look at that history and say that was a true fork in the road moment for the Ohio State program. It's been good for decades, far before we were there. But I was at Ohio State in 1999 when we didn't go to a bowl game first time since the 80s that the Buckeyes didn't go to a bowl game. And so Coach Tressel was brought in to fix that problem. And in his second year, brought back the expectations and got a national championship. And since then, Ohio State has been at the tip of the spear of college athletics, college football, and got another national championship in 2014. Been a part of the college football playoffs since it started. So one of the historical parts of my era in Ohio State legacy is making sure and getting it back to the current run of excellence that it's been upon.
Ben Hartsock taking some time to join us, and you went from the transition of college back to the pros, and then jumping on buses and going to colleges and things like that. What was that like, and when did you decide, hey, I think I'm going to try to get broadcasting, a shot? Again, going from anonymity to now where people know you more for being on camera and stuff than your career.
Yeah, the transition out of the locker room is one that everybody struggles with, everybody talks about. I was thankful to be fortunate to have an NFL career, to have such a long experience, but we all know that day is coming. And when you take off your helmet and hang up your pads, that's it. There's no rec league football, thankfully. There's no, it's not like golf that you can play and play forever, or basketball or others. And so for me, it was there were two schools of thought as we got older in our NFL career. People would say either have something waiting for you, a job, a career, an interest, so that you can make that transition smooth. Or the other thought of that people would say, hey, the more you think about life after football, the sooner you'll get there. And so for me, I chose the former. I wanted to have something waiting for me. And so I worked as an agent for a couple of years, representing players. I had an agent that was hugely impactful on my career. I don't think I have the length and the success of a career that I have without his guidance. The agents get a lot of times a bad rap, but I certainly had one of the good ones. So I worked with him for a couple of years, but that just wasn't the right fit. And I was thankful for that time because it was waiting for me, and off I went. After I got out of the agent world, I got into broadcasting, and one of my other projects I do here is visiting some of these college environments now, I guess as a low-level YouTuber. But working as a broadcaster, I get to share my own experiences. I get to analyze the game that I've spent my lifetime dedicated to. And now to be able to see some of these, iconic Americana events firsthand is a real passion for me, that I get to share this perspective of being on the, being at the big house, even when my Buckeyes took the L. But, I went to Texas, Oklahoma this year, and went to Auburn and got to watch the War Eagle flight. College athletics will always be the most special to me because it's iconic, it's historic. It's generational. I grew up in Ohio. My parents both went to Ohio State, brothers, aunts, uncles. It was part of our family fabric. But everywhere you go, even if you go to Auburn or Ole Miss or anywhere in this country, there are generations of people that have that same feeling I have for Ohio State. They have it for their own alma mater, and I can't get enough of it.
Well, it is neat to see, behind the scenes, even though I worked at ESPN, it's still neat to see what you give those fans that perspective. And again, your emotions, even though your team lost, you were talking about being there for 111,000 people at those games and stuff. And again, as a player, you're in that moment, you're focused on the game. You don't get to take in that ambiance, or you get in trouble, you get yelled at. So it's got to be a different, enjoyable perspective from you as you get to see these things almost as a fan and a broadcaster.
You're exactly right. I went to Penn State a season ago, and my parents talked about when they went to Penn State when I was at Ohio State, and they said, "Oh, that was such a great trip. We went to the Creamery and took our picture next to the Nittany Lion." I said, "Well, no, I didn't know that. I saw the airport, the hotel, at the locker room, and the field, because we're all focused on the task at hand." So to be able to come back again, it makes my own memories of being there as a player that much more precious. And the great thing about broadcasting, I think you understand this, Dave, that you get that access that so few get. Nobody knows what the press box looks like, and nobody knows what it's like to be down on the field, to be able to see how big these players are and the athleticism displayed in such close circumstances. So for me to be able to share that is something that I really, really treasure.
I want to ask you about your draft day experience. Where were you when you got the call, and did you know the Colts were interested in you?
I didn't. I knew that I guess the Colts were interested because during the combine, you have a couple of scheduled interviews with coaches at their hotel rooms, their suites. They have an interview process. And the Colts interviewed me, and it was with Coach Dungy. And so I guess that should have been an indicator, but they had drafted Dallas Clark, was a first-round pick the year before. And I mentioned Marcus Pollard. He was an entrenched veteran, so I wasn't expecting to go to the Colts. But my draft day experience it kind of weaves into that story. Is I was at my small little apartment. My wife and I were newly married. And in that day, the first 3 rounds were on the first day, and the rest of the draft was on the second. And we didn't really expect to go in the first 3 rounds. We were, that was kind of a best case scenario would be 3rd round. So I was trying to mentally prepare myself to say, nah, let's not get my hopes up and be disappointed. And I was still working on my degree. So I was actually working on a paper for histology. I still remember it to this day. It was somatotropin and its effect on body composition. I don't remember why I remember that, but I was working on a term paper, and it was during that point where I was outside of the room. My family was there. My wife was there, and she said, hey, why don't you come in? This is, if we were going to go in the 3rd round, this is kind of would be the window we would thought. And we watched, and I had been prepared by my agent to say there's a lot of times there's gamesmanship to say you'll get a call and it's a smoke screen, or it's a call and they're trying to feel something out of if you've talked to another team. So I was expecting a call saying, hey, we're going to draft you if this happens, or if this player's taken, we may not be able to get you. There's that. That's my expectation. It ended up being the exact opposite. I got one phone call. It was Tony Dungy congratulating me. It was Jabil Polian congratulating me, saying we're going to draft you number 69 overall, 68 overall. I can't remember. And that was it. And just like that, your life changed. It is still surreal how quickly you wait for this phone call and you're moving to a new place. And for me, I was thankful for 2 things. One, the Colts were a great team. Peyton Manning, Tony Dungy. I was thankful to get to go to a team that was instantly a Super Bowl contender. And 2, it was only 3 hours from where I grew up. So I knew that my family would be able to go there, and, great circumstances. Couldn't have hoped for anything better. One of the funny things from that phone call was you say congratulations to the coach or the general manager, and they said, okay, we're going to hand you to an assistant that's going to make some logistical plans, get you moving to Atlanta, some things like that. But they asked me, well, what? So they give me this assistant, and they said, well, what number do you want to wear? And I was kind of, again, I'm a slow processor. I thought, well, gosh, I don't know that I'm ready to make this decision. And I just kind of casually, I said, well, I'd love 88. That's what I wore at Ohio State. And there was kind of an awkward pause, and this assistant said, 88's being worn by Marvin Harrison. You're not going to be able to have that. You're going to have to go ahead and pick another number. But I remember feeling so stupid because I thought, well, geez, I should have known that this future Hall of Famer is wearing the number I wore in college. So I picked another number, needless to say.
That worked out for you well. But on the not so great side, talk a little bit about what that was like. Again, we look at it like you bounced around. I look at it like you had the success and the skills enough to get those opportunities with other clubs. And one of those, I was sad to see, I think it was 4 days with the Patriots. And I'm thinking, you go there, you're thinking, I'm with Tom Brady. I'm going to be around Gronk. This is going to be great. I mean, how did you deal with that? And those situations where it's like you're in and suddenly you're out, and it's like you and your wife are like, what do we do now?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I never finished a contract with any of the teams that I played with. I was let go or released, whatever. And so you just get kind of numb to cut on a Tuesday, and on Wednesday you're at a new locker room or heading to a new team, and it's rattling, but you do get kind of numb to it. But it's something that I've learned that I apply it even to my career now. The reason I played as long as I did was I did the job that nobody else wanted to do. Everybody wants to be Travis Kelce. Everybody wants to be Rob Gronkowski, catching the touchdown, making the glorious plays. The problem is there's still dirty work that has to be done. And that's why I played as long as I did. I was that guy that you could put on a defensive end and one-on-one with the tight end to get the job done. I could protect a quarterback one-on-one. That was a great luxury. That's why I played as long as I did. But I always said this: coaches loved me as a player because they knew that what they were going to get. General managers cut me often because I wasn't didn't have a high enough ceiling. There wasn't enough sizzle. Coaches love dependable and reliable and knowing what they're going to get. General managers who make the rosters, make the cut or keep decisions are always looking for a little bit more. That period with the Patriots, it was that the last 4 days, that was the last gasp of my NFL career. I knew that I probably wouldn't make that roster, but at the time I hadn't been on a team all spring and summer, but I was 34 years old going into my 11th season, trying to show and signal to the entire league, hey, I'm still in shape. The guy that you've watched for the previous decade still can do what he's been doing. He just wasn't on a roster at this time. So I thought, go to New England, keep the spot warm for Gronkowski, who was nursing an injury, get some preseason game tape, and one of the other 32 teams will need me, just like I had jumped in with other teams midstream right before the season started. The problem was they were asking me to do Rob Gronkowski's job. And that's not necessarily my skill set. I'm running deep crossers and comeback routes and running routes like a wide receiver, doing my best. But again, I was on the downhill slide of my ability. And you're there, so you try to make hay while you're there. And I'm talking to myself. I'm lined up in the slot, and I'm saying to myself, okay, I'm going to run this route. I'm going to catch this pass. I'm going to score a touchdown. I'm going to make this roster, and run the route, turn around, and I turn around and wait for the ball. But literally right next to me was Julian Edelman. Well, in football, if you're standing directly next to your teammate, you've screwed up. So I've run the wrong route. So Brady takes the ball and he chucks it into the ground because the play's blown up, and he cusses at me, "Daggone it, Brian!" And I was like, "I'm Ben, but no big deal. It's not a big deal. I'll let myself out." And that was it wasn't too much. It wasn't that play that ended my time there, but I didn't do again, that's another train that was moving very fast. You have to be functioning at the highest level. And so that's it was the unceremonious end to a career. And I stayed ready. That's the hard thing you ask about transitioning out of the game. There is no ceremony at the end of your career, retirement ceremony where they give you a gold watch and a cake and say, thanks for your service. I stayed in shape and tried to get on a roster that whole season. And it was really around Thanksgiving. I called my agent. I said, what am I doing? I'm driving 45 minutes to the gym every day, working out 4 or 5 hours a day, trying to stay ready if a team calls, but nobody's called all year. And his advice was, you just have to draw a line in the sand. And when it's over, it's over. And so for me, that last year, the 11th season, where I tell people I was a football player, but I didn't play football that season in 2014. I said, I need to be ready for that quote unquote playoff run, that if somebody needs a veteran player, somebody gets hurt. I said, I'd be kicking myself if after New Year's, a team that's in the playoff needs a guy like me, and they say, we need you, but I'm not ready. So I said, be ready till then. And if not, that was it. Didn't get that call. And for me, that was the closure that I needed. And to say, I'm done, thankful for the time that I had, and move on to the next thing.
And speaking of the next thing, you've got your broadcasting career. We've got our broadcasting career. And you know a little bit about streaming and the things that you do, but you guys can also watch Geary, Stein, and Stevens on your laptop and your computer. You can watch this very show that we're going to post soon, and it's going to be there on yourhometv.com. We're excited because, you can see our show. We work hard on this stuff, and we have our fans out there that are watching on YouTube and Facebook and all of the platforms. But this makes it a lot easier. It's one-stop shopping. My buddy Jason likes to work out, so you can catch highlights of Linda Cohn or Lee Steinberg or Ben. Ben's going to be on very soon. So again, thank you guys for our support. yourhometv.com streaming service. It's great to watch. Jason, thank you for your workouts and thank you for your support as we wrap up our show and our final segment. Ben, we also have another host, and he is always working, and from time to time he pops in. This time he's popping in via tape. He's got a question for you, so we'll take it away.
Hey, Ben, thanks for coming on the show. Unfortunately, I can't make it because I have to work today, but I just wanted to ask a quick question for you. How would you compare playing for Tony Dungy compared to Rex Ryan? Thank you for taking the time to come on the show, and thank you for taking the time to answer this question. Thank you. Have a good day. Hope to hear from you soon. Bye-bye.
He
I
was a
think
low
that's
talker, but I hope you heard him.
no, I did, and that's a great question, and I use that very illustration often when talking about the differences between coaches. Tony Dungy and Rex Ryan could not be more distinctly opposite, but they were both great coaches who I hold in very high regard. But the common denominator is coaches have to be completely genuine. They have to know exactly who they are and operate from that place, because coaches are motivators. Coaches, the greatest coaches are, what they do is they bring out of players something the players don't see in themselves. And so to try to bring something out of the player, to get a team to do something that is against everything in your being that says you want to do, to run that route, to win that game, to fight till the absolute end, coaches have to be able to bring that out. And so Coach Dungy was soft-spoken and quiet and very measured. You knew on opening day practice, first meeting of training camp, he would lay out what New Year's was going to look like. We knew what the practice schedule was, and practice Christmas Day would look like. Rex Ryan was the opposite. He was a barroom brawler. The picture you used was perfect. He was a trash talker. He was bravado, and he was swagger. And the funny thing about both of those coaches, when I played for them, I took on some of their characteristics. When I played with the Colts and with Tony Dungy and even with Peyton Manning, who was a coach in many ways as well, you were absolutely focused on the most minute detail. Everything was thought through. We filmed walkthrough and watched walkthrough as if it were practice tape. I've never seen any other team do that. But when I was with Rex Ryan with the New York Jets, remember those, people say what you want about Rex Ryan. We were in the AFC Championship game 2 years in a row, a game away from the Super Bowl. We were good football teams, but we played that chest thumping, we're going to fight you till the bitter end style of play. And I found myself as a teammate on that team shoving all the way till the echo of that whistle, finishing, talking, playing bully football. That was the identity that coach, that Rex Ryan made for that team. And that's what I loved about the experience of playing for so many great coaches, is you always take on characteristics as a team of your leadership. And those two were very distinct opposites that I played for.
I have a question about the NALs. What do you think of the process as a former player? Do you like it, love it, or are you indifferent? And I have a second part question after that. So
NIL in college athletics?
yes.
Hate it. The trajectory we are going on in college athletics is full-on professionalization. And I'm a capitalist, and I earn a salary, and to say that I hate NIL sounds like I'm heartless towards college athletics. But I say for two reasons: professionalizing college football. One, it undermines the entire purpose of college. College is a developmental institution. People go there to be doctors, lawyers, engineers, and some of us to be football players. So when you professionalize it through either weaponized recruiting or just a full-on salary, which is where we'll probably be in the next 5 to 10 years, you really undercut that development piece. When you guys talk to a lot of pro players. If you ask every single one of them what their most sentimental, where they think of with most fondness, I've never heard anybody say anything other than college. Because college, I always say this, college is like a doctor residency. A residency in it as a doctor, you're doing the cut, you're making the surgery, you're doing the stitches, but without the burden and the stress and the pressure of being a full-blown professional doctor with malpractice insurance and running your own business and all those kinds of things. College football is the same kind of way. So from the developmental side, I just hate that we're losing that. But the other side of this is I believe that college athletics is funded by football and basketball. So every time you reallocate this money that's coming in, sure, the players that are making the money, the football players, basketball players, are they deserving it? Sure. But at the other end of this, swimming and rowing and every other varsity sport, non-revenue sport, how does that work? And so there are 460,000 NCAA student athletes from Division I to Division III. All of those are supported by about 5 to 10,000 college football and basketball players. And so when you pay them their due, I understand that sentiment. You're going to rob that opportunity for hundreds of thousands of other players. Our Olympic program is fed through the college model. I have big concerns about the sustainability of that, because once you go professional, the people that are making the money are the ones that keep all the money, so they won't have any left for everybody else.
And then last week, quarterback recruit Jalen Rashada, who committed to the University of Florida, backed out of his commitment because the university rescinded a $13 million NIL deal. Do you think there at least should be some sort of regulation when it comes to this, and not to just go to the highest bidder?
Yeah, the weaponized recruiting is the exact thing that NIL supporters said wouldn't happen, but here it is, and it's dirty, and it's seedy. It feels like cheating. It was cheating for the entirety of college athletics. It happened in some places, but now it's above board. And to try to regulate it, there's a reason why the new president of the NCAA is a former governor of Massachusetts. It's because people believe that it's going to take Congress to try to regulate this, because now that the cat is out of the bag, to try to regulate NIL is basically to regulate capitalism. You now have a market system to say that what can stop me if I want to overpay you, Tony, and pay you $1 million every episode. Who is anybody to tell me I can't do that, even though it may or may not be the right move? This is America. I can spend my money how I see fit. So to try to regulate that is going to be hard, because you'll have to get agreement from college football players. And right now they're not unionized, and they're only around for 3 or 4 years tops in this college model. So there's a lot of tentacles to this that'll have to get straightened out. We're trending towards that, where we'll have a collectively bargained group of regulations, but it's going to take a lot of lawyers to get the job done.
Well, it's basically NFL free agency. I think even worse, because now these boosters can go, hey, we want that kid, so get him out of his contract. He's going to come here, jump to Ohio State, jump to ASU or whatever. Hey, it didn't work out this well. Well, another backer in Wyoming wants to give you and it seems like it's going to really ruin the game, because like the NFL, we don't get those guys that play 5 or 6 years with those teams. And now we get a college guy who might be there for a year, and then he plays, and then he sits out the bowl game because I don't want to ruin my stock.
Yeah, it's more than free agency, because in free agency, at least there are contracts and expectations of, okay, for this amount of time I'll be here. But you've got examples in college football. JT Daniels started at USC. He's now at Rice. Will have been at 4 teams in 4 years. So it's even more wide open than NFL free agency. And ultimately, it comes down to, what do you want to accomplish? And we have been in a there's been a groundswell of enthusiasm to pay players, get them their due. They're being exploited. I just fundamentally don't believe that. I don't think that coaches are out to get players. But as we go towards professionalism, that spirit of togetherness, of development of each other, hey, come to Ohio State, hey, come to Michigan and get developed. Know that when you go between employee and employer, that becomes adversarial. It's about, how much can I get from you for as little as possible? And as the player, how much can I get without having to do as little as possible? Like, it changes the fundamentals of the game itself. But I don't see how we're going to change that. As much of a doom and gloom person as I can be, I will say, as long as that Clemson Tiger Paws on the helmet and the Alabama A and the Georgia G, no matter what they do, I think we'll still like it, because game day, they will protect game day, and it'll still be the same uniforms, the same brands, the same bands, the same mascots. And I think most fans look at that and say, as long as that's the same, I don't care if they're getting paid or not. I fight passionately for that institution of amateurism and development, because it's one of the most fundamental, foundational things that made me and thousands of people I know. And also the opportunities afforded to college athletics, non-revenue sports, are just as important, but because there's not as many eyes, or the media rights aren't as lucrative, I want to support those till the very bitter end, even though I think as we professionalize this, there will be some hard decisions. For every win, there's a lose, and somebody's going to lose in this deal.
Hey, we won today having you here. And again, I did my homework, looking through hours and hours of video of you. And again, I just wanted to get the touchdown on for our watchers. to see that because, again, I saw some great blocks at Ohio State, lots of great blocks in the NFL that you didn't get credit for. But, of course, this was the caveat. Is that your greatest memory in the NFL?
It's one of the highlights. It's so funny that we were playing in throwback uniforms. So the only touchdown I have, they're like, "What did you play in? The XFL?" Doesn't even look like a normal Jets uniform. That's one of those. It's funny. The guy that I run into to fake for that touchdown was a teammate of mine with the Indianapolis Colts. We're buddies, even talk to this day. So it's funny. I knew the guy I scored the touchdown against more than any of the guys that I knew on the team that I was playing for. But that kind of summarizes the NFL in a nutshell. And it also kind of foreshadows what I think a lot of what college will be like as we professionalize that.
Well, I had fun today, Troy. Did you have fun?
Any other questions? Last talking to you, Ben. No, it was great. Great job.
Ben, where can people find you, listen to you? I know you're on Sirius and everything, and it's like you're doing a lot of different things year round. So tell us where they can see you, watch you, listen to you.
Yeah, I'm on Sirius XM, College Sports Radio, their Big Ten channel. If you have the Sirius XM app, you search my name, Ben Hartsock, and any of the shows that I'm on or have been on in the past week is available. My social medias are all at Ben Hartsock, HARTSOCK. Or you could follow some of my travels on YouTube. You just search my name at Ben Hartsock on YouTube, and you can see some of the incredible, iconic sports venues that I get to see on a week-to-week basis.
84,000 downloads on the Ohio State-Michigan game. Not that I was looking, but that's still pretty good. And again, we got some great stuff coming up too, Troy and I and Will. We want to let you guys know that, hey, guess what? My camp is happening. The Dave Stevens Ability Camp with Pro Stance. We're putting it on with Luis Sendejas, so you can go there. Kids can play, parents, all those kind of things. We are just so excited that Pro Stance is allowing me these opportunities, and we will be on Radio Row. So for anybody out there still that would like to have sponsorship, branding, all kinds of things, Troy and I are picking out the events that we're going to be to and all those kind of fun things. But this was fun today. Thank you, Ben, for joining us and being a part of our little show. And again, follow us on all social media platforms. It's, of course, the Geary, Stein, and Stevens Show, where you can watch podcasts, listen to podcasts, or see all those kind of podcasts. So for Ben, for Troy, and myself, I'm Dave Stevens. We'll catch you next time. Thanks for listening.